Rachel and Stacey are the decoding couples duo. They've got 20 years of combined experience as therapists, experience as parents, an audience of 236,000, and they built the Relationship Roadmap online course, and they have their awesome podcast, Decoding Couples Unfiltered Relationship Advice. And they're also just two absolutely lovely people that I've got to spend some time with recently. Ladies, welcome to the Coupley Relationship Advice podcast.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having us.
I'm really excited that you're here.
Us too.
Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Common challenges. In your experience, what are some of the most common challenges that couples are facing today, and how has this evolved over your years of practice?
Probably one of the ones that are the most common is an individual or all parties in the couple complaining that they don't feel seen or heard. And this is usually under the bridge of like, well, we don't communicate. And then when we kind of talk a little more, they're like, I feel really misunderstood by my partner. I feel like they just don't even understand me. There's no room for my pain. There's no room for my experience. All of that ultimately is like, I don't feel seen and heard by them on a large scale and even on a small scale, even on like the day-to-day stuff. And we see this chronically really, really start to weigh down couples because then it feels like there's no safety in the communication. It feels like there's no room for me to exist. And it creates like a pretty chronic cycle. So I think the thing that we really see most often is I don't feel seen and heard. My partner doesn't get me.
I feel like one of the most common phrases I say to couples, like off of everything that Rachel is saying, because I hands down agree, is just reflecting back like, wow, it really seems like you two are coming from different realities. And that statement is like, yes,
Woo!
I don't feel like they are living in my reality. Our experiences are so different. And I feel like that phrase captures what I think a lot of the couples we see come in feel like, and that is their genuine lived experience. And so it's, how do you get on the same page? And a lot of people are just thinking that is just about learning communication skills, and some of it is, but there's a lot more within that.
That sounds absolutely massive. I'd be terrified if if I'd been in a relationship with someone for a long time and you're going in with that as the realization that we are living in different realities. How do people get to that state where they are living in two separate universes? Walk us back from that. What are some of the steps that happen to get couples who've probably, I'm guessing, been together for a while? If they're coming to see you guys, I'm guessing that they've got some stakes in their relationship. They're likely a little bit more mature, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know how you feel, Stace, but I feel like it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's not. I think that there's an assumption that like it's this big fight or it's this massive thing. And don't get me wrong, right? There's like stuff that happens in relationships that's traumatic and can kind of change the course. But a lot of what Stace and I see are these really small transgressions. So that's half of it, right? These hurts. Around something I felt it was important that maybe my partner didn't. They misunderstood it. I felt hurt by their response. Their response was defensive, whatever it is. It's something I cared about, and that their response was hurtful. So that's that first part. And then the second part was that there was no repair around it. And so, that means I said something hurtful or my partner said something hurtful to me. I tried to let him know. I don't know. He dismissed it. And then I took that hurt and I stored that and said to myself, I can't trust them anymore, or I can't go to them. So this just happens, right, over the course of the relationship. And what ends up going on that's more implicit is we pull back vulnerably. So you were kind of asking like, what is happening? It's these small transgressions where we don't feel seen and heard. There's a lack of repair. And then we stop like stepping in authentically in the relationship. And so it becomes, to Stacey's point, these people in these relationships are living in different realities because they literally are. You are starting to like bifurcate and dissect parts of yourself and only choosing other parts to interact with your person in. That's not real life. Like that's truly not. And then you've got somebody else or multiple people experiencing that version of you, and it's just not real. It's just not authentic. So it's not these big blowouts or fights. It's these small transgressions that are left to bleed out with no repair and no care.
I could not agree more. And then I think the like deeper or earlier foundation of that is that everybody who comes into a relationship brings a childhood with them, brings,
Oof.
traumas, whether it's, big T's, little T's, the tiniest T's, like the different spectrum of traumas that shape what makes us feel heard and what makes us feel seen. It also shapes how you fight, what triggers you to put those walls up and makes you feel like this was the most wrong thing a partner could do to you. Like we all come in with those histories, and we all come in with a different degree of skills and tools of how to understand that and navigate that. And I think that when partners have very different skill sets and very different levels of willingness to try to understand and navigate and change, that's when we see that like crazy gridlock of like, it has been 10 years. We are so stuck. We have no idea who each other is anymore. Can we get through it? It is the 1,000 paper cuts and this foundational piece that I think really shapes how people then tune into their relationships and have willingness to make changes and grow together.
What a cool point. It's very interesting. I haven't thought of it like this. It's Rachel. Rachel's like, this was so good. I'm actually done. This was the perfect answer. It's not going to get better than this. You guys are now by yourselves.
Oh my God.
This is the equivalent of a mic drop. And good night. Rachel out. Building a different reality brick by brick through thousands and thousands of small indiscretions over a 10-year period sounds like the way that it would happen. So thank you for that. And that's the first time I've ever thought of this concept in that way, in that when you have these sort of micro moments of disconnection, each one is a brick where you're building the wall between you. Each one is this way of starting to, and Rachel, you put it so perfectly, starting to build your own separate existence away from your partner where you're not connected. And it's very, very fascinating concept, and I'm really enjoying exploring it. How does attachment come into this? You guys have done a lot of work around attachment, and I've really enjoyed Stacey's laughing. I'd love to hear this. Like, where does this come in?
I mean, it's everything about it. Like, so Rachel and I, we are 2 licensed therapists, and we are also trained in a theory called EFT, which is attachment based, which means that is a major part of our relationships and who we choose as partners and how we communicate, how we conflict, how we come back together. And everybody has an attachment style. Our attachment style is formed in childhood. It is formed by whether it was your parent or your grandparent or whoever your primary caregiver was, how they attuned to your emotional needs, your physical needs, how they showed up for you, how they modeled repair, like Rachel was talking about. All of that shapes our attachment styles. And then which basically means, how do we feel safe? How do we trust? How do we connect? And then we grow up and we bring that into our adult relationships. So it is the closest, your adult partners are the closest things that can mimic your relationship with your parent or your primary caregiver. And so it triggers all the positive and the negative attachment stuff that was formed when we were little. And our adult relationships give us the opportunity to have corrective experiences through our attachment, or to just be re-triggering, recreating of those old wounds. So that is like I hope that made sense. It's like a big overview of why attachment is so important and how it shows up with our adult romantic relationships. It is the thread of how we connect.
You've got this great chart in your course relationship roadmap, which I got a sneak peek into. Thank you for that. And it was really cool because I'd love you to talk a little bit more about it, because I was about to describe it, but I'm sure you guys will do a much better job.
So it's based off of Scott Woolley's What is the infinity symbol is what
The infinity
is what
symbol.
it
We're all
looks
doing
like.
it. If you're not watching
Yeah.
this on
Yeah,
YouTube,
I'm
we're
like,
all doing the infinity symbol with our fingers right now.
yeah, figure eight on the side, and which, symbolizes how things kind of all relate and flow together. But it is about how oh God, let me make sure I say it right. And Rachel, correct me if I don't, because off the top of my head. But something happens, an action happens or an interaction happens that triggers basically how we feel and an unmet need, which then triggers how we respond, which then triggers our partners to respond. Like that's where it like catches over, which then brings up a feeling for them, which then brings up, however, their unmet needs, which then triggers, how they feel about it and how they respond. And it's kind of just this dance is what they call it, going back and forth, where the way we respond comes from our attachment wounds. But typically we do a funny thing where we find partners that our automatic responses tend to trigger their shit also. And that's where it can become a cycle. If my response is unhealthy and triggers you, if you have not worked on your stuff, it is going to trigger whatever your protective, unhealthy response was that, like Rachel was saying, you developed in childhood. So maybe as a kid, if you didn't feel heard, you would go to your room and slam the door. But maybe as an adult, your way of feeling heard is to then yell at your partner to try to connect. Like it's just the adult version of some of those things, but it's those unhealed parts that show up that then create how our partner responds.
Could you pull this into a sort of real life version? How does this look, and what do you see in your offices with couples?
Yeah, it literally happened this morning for me personally. Yeah.
How?
But it's so, did you say how?
Yeah, how?
How I made a mistake of how I scheduled our podcast to come out this morning. And I scheduled, we had 2 released today on accident instead of 1 next week. And Rachel made some comment of like, we shouldn't run our business in this state because there are a lot of things going on in our personal lives. But I took that text as like, my fuck up means that like she's done. And that automatically, now Rachel and I have gotten to a point where it doesn't spiral me and trigger me because we have been partners now for years on years and have worked through this dynamic a lot. But my automatic response that comes up is like, I messed up. I am not good enough. She is going to leave. And then typically, like previously, I think in our early in our business relationship, I probably would have been like, I'm so sorry. What can I do? Like, actually, I kind of did that. I was like, do you need me to post a reel or a post? Yeah. Like trying to overcompensate to be like, I'm good enough. I'm here. Don't leave.
Yeah.
Like it's here. So, but we see that. So in like couples, somebody messes up or says something wrong. If somebody is anxious, it can trigger their like, how can I keep you? And that is usually more pursuey. And then if you're paired with somebody who's avoidant, they're going to push away. And so somebody pursuing them while they're like, I can only depend on myself. I need my independence. Again, cycle, doing the infinity sign. They just keep triggering each other until someone has the awareness or the skills or the tools to say, I don't need to do this.
Daisy, how do you react when you're with another anxious person and they're blowing up your phones and you're feeling that pursued? And do you have any friends that are like that or relationships like that?
So my other best friend, I know. She is beautiful. She also we are very anxious. And I actually just spent the weekend with her, and we are both not in our best states, I would say. And we could sit there and just talk about everything that is wrong. But it's comforting because she's my best friend. I don't think I have ever been in a romantic partnership with somebody who's anxious, honestly, because I don't think it would be attractive to me. And I even think people who have come and gone in my life that are just like, I'm like, whatever, bye, sounds good, are probably anxiously attached because them being so available and pursuing to me is unattractive. But then the person who's not emotionally available, I'm like, oh my God, like, why haven't they written me back? Like, this is not okay. So I don't, avoidant pairings and anxious pairings are definitely not as common, because I don't think it triggers the same. I mean, it happens, but I don't think it triggers the same kind of like subconscious, can we try to get our needs met here
Yeah.
that were left
Yeah.
unmet if you're just doing
Yeah.
the same shit to each other? It's so annoying to me as someone who deals with anxiety and is anxiously attached. It matters. Like it sounds so simple, but it is so hard to implement, but there's no way around it, is what I have found personally and professionally. And so yeah, like it sounds, it's eye roll worthy, and it is so, so important. It's also trial and error, which makes it really hard. Like if somebody was like, go meditate 2 times a day for 2 minutes, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Cause I'm not going to do that. But what I will do is I will get outside and walk. I have found out that that is insanely helpful for me, which I freaking hate. How I consume alcohol and how I consume caffeine when my anxiety is high really
Yeah.
matters. But all of this is trial and error of trying to do things like, okay, yeah, high intensity workouts. Like, nope, not for me. Trying to meditate. Nope, not for me. Writing, sometimes, but like sometimes not. And so it's hard. I just want to normalize for everybody. It's hard to maintain the stamina when you feel crazy or you feel like something is wrong with you to do what feels like these very small nominal things, but like they really, really, really matter. And like you deserve to have things in your toolbox that you can say, I know this works. I have to get outside today. Like it's so powerful and empowering. So that's all. That's all. That's me on my soapbox.
Let's talk about communication. How does this blend into our everyday communication practices? What are the-
Mm.
Yeah. I'd I'd love to say that I'm more secure, but I'm definitely more on the anxious side, but really cognizant of it. And my girlfriend and I had our biggest like argument a while ago that we had for than we'd had for so long. And I really felt all of the anxious stuff come up big time for the
Yeah.
first time in forever. Which has been the best thing for coupley. I got so inspired. I wrote down all of the things that I'm feeling and all the things that she was doing. We both like fully went into it. Well, sorry, she fully went into it. I'd say I was much more like, wow, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like if that was the feeling, that was the severity of the feeling inside. I was like, wow, this is to feel like this is crazy. Like I am crazy. I'm so crazy. And I was really lucky we just built our chat robot because I was like hammering. I was like, you know what? I've built this thing. I'm just gonna unload on it.
Let me use it.
I was unloading on her, absolutely unloading on her. And she was being really great. Like she obviously like she's not real. Yeah, great
Yeah.
job, great job, coupley AI, unnamed person. But I was feeling so much, but it was wild the feelings that I had, and I'm very happy that I didn't act on those feelings, but I was shocked at how strong they were in a bad argument.
Mm.
And I noticed this as I've got some friends that are much more anxiously attached, how overbearing I find it. And then I look at the stuff they're doing and I'm thinking, fucking hell, Tim, you basically do this same shit. And it's so interesting how when someone else does the same thing to you that you do to someone else, it can just be perceived and received in a different way.
Yeah.
And what I also think is because when people are very, very, very anxious, you know from when you've hung out with them, when you spoke to them, you know how much they're putting on everything. So you know how much weight they're putting on the length of time you take to respond, the length of your responses, how you respond. They are like on hypervigilance, and as a friend, it's very interesting the impact it has on the dynamic.
It's kind words for it. But I think what you're saying is so, as somebody who's anxious, I'm like, oh God, I get this. When you just feel like you're going to die, you're like, I am
Yeah,
fucking nuts. Like, what is
yeah,
happening? Like,
nuts.
it's
Yeah,
so disorienting, but anybody can change their attachment styles. And that point of what you're saying of like, when it feels so physically and mentally intense, it's like that's where you have to learn the skills to manage that, or else, like talking about the infinity cycle, it's that like crazy making feeling that then drives the responses, like whether it's words or behaviors. And that's where we get stuck. I mean, Rachel and I are like a freaking broken record talking about the importance of self-regulation and
Yeah.
tolerating your feelings, because without it, all of our like what, yeah, for anxious people, it's like, yeah, the drive to like get reassurance and like go and say things and like do or sabotage. And I imagine, for avoidance, it's like, I have to get out of this. Like I have to like
Yes.
remove myself. And that
Space.
if we all live by only responding to that dysregulated childlike attachment stuff, then it's like, yeah, of course our relationships are going to be childlike and unhealthy. But I wasn't taught how to tolerate those feelings. And I don't think a lot of us were. And that's what we see in our office. Like we just act and respond versus knowing how to calm.
And it's so normal that your feelings equals truth. And
Yeah.
it's very important to break that thing that because I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, it's very easy to just let yourself have this mental narrative. But I think, luckily, because I'm in this space, I don't think that. I think, like, gosh, this is very interesting, these wild things I'm thinking. One, I am crazy. Like, wow, I didn't know I was this mad.
You're not crazy. You're not crazy. You're not crazy, Tim.
Thank you. But you're just like, gosh, it's bizarre that I'm thinking these things. And secondly, very important that I don't let this, just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean it's true. And just writing things down, talking to someone, human or not, very useful. Stacey, what are some ways people can create these timeouts or spaces in a way that's going to be heard by their partner? Because it can be said in a sort of way that will even antagonize them or almost make it worse. How do we thread that needle?
Yeah, I think understanding exactly what you just said of how not to do it is very important, as well as how to do it. So timeouts are one of the best regulation skills that you can use for yourself and for your relationship. But the minute it becomes a manipulative tool, or a threat, or I'm going to walk away and like, we'll see when I come back, if I come back today, right? Like when it becomes that kind of like open-ended fighting tool, that's where people go wrong. So we always say self-inflicted timeouts need to come with a couple things. One, you need to communicate that you're doing it. I can't think straight right now. I'm really worried I'm going to say something that I don't mean to you, and I don't want to do that. I'm trying to do something different, so I'm going to walk away, right? Like you're acknowledging why, you're taking the full responsibility. And then there's also a promise of return. So again, you're not just leaving, you're saying everything I said before, I'm going to go for a walk around the block. And then when I come back, let's see if we want to talk about it or how we're feeling. I'm going to step upstairs for an hour. I just need to cool off. And then I'll come back downstairs and like, let's see if we want to talk about it. Let's check in then. You're putting some kind of time frame around it. And that's not to say that after that 10 minutes or that walk or whatever it is, you're forcing yourself back into a conversation. But it's like the first benchmark, right? And then say after your walk around the block, you're even more mad. Then you come back and you say that. I have gotten even more mad and like, I do not think that this conversation is going to be good right now. So I need to take an hour or two, or like, can we pause this until the morning? Let's just sleep on it, right? Like as long as there's the communication though, about what is going on in the moment and some kind of plan of how we're coming back to this, those two things are crucial to a healthy self-inflicted timeout and to use it as a relationship tool.
Can you put your partner on a timeout? Or does it not land as well
No.
if you're saying you seem activated, you need to take...
No. Yeah.
Don't
do that.
It's hard though, because if you think this conversation is getting big, and I'm thinking not of my relationship here, I'm thinking of Love is Blind, because I've been watching it.
Do tell. Yeah, I'm done with this season. Oh.
But you're all caught up, I'm assuming. I just look at Chelsea and I'm like, wow, this is what I could become if I just let myself.
Yes, they are classic anxious attachment. Mm-hmm. Or anxious avoidance, sorry.
Yeah.
She would have been like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think trying to have these conversations when you're too anything is something that has been very powerful. If you're too thirsty, too hungry, too caffeinated, too much alcohol, which definitely that one is something that you see, too stressed, too activated. I think just even those and just acknowledging I'm too drunk to have this conversation. It's very difficult. I think this is advanced. I think anyone listening to this, I feel like these are advanced stuff, but this is when these are the things that can make such a massive improvement to your relationship. So it's really important to know. Once you come out the other side of these conflicts, how do you make it better? What are your tips for repairing an argument after a hard conversation, or repairing one after you've had an instance with your partner where things aren't working?
I say I don't think anybody can go wrong with taking responsibility or ownership for their side of what happened. I think anytime any misunderstanding or huge blow up fight happens, depending, regardless of the scale, think of anybody coming to you and being like, I'm so sorry that I yelled, or I'm so sorry that I brought up, that fight from last week. I love you so much and I want us to be good. I'm going to work on X. Like, how good does that feel? Like, everybody loves when someone takes responsibility for their stuff. So that's like if you need a go-to, just take responsibility for your for your role. Own it. That's a major repair.
Beautiful. Ladies, this has been short but sweet. I've absolutely loved having you on the Coupley Relationship Advice podcast. I've really enjoyed just getting to know you as well. And for the audience listening to this, we got to hang out. I went to Dr. Tara's event, which was really cool in LA.
So fun.
Wasn't that so good?
Yeah.
The
three of us got paired together the first time meeting in person. And it was like, here's the icebreaker for this sex event. Like, what's your deepest, darkest sex secret is basically like what it felt like. And the three of us are just looking at each other like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, we're doing it. So it was an escalated relationship.
It was. It definitely was. Definitely, and I was sort of in very professional. I felt like I was in very professional mode as well. I was like, "Hi, nice to meet you." Like wearing like a blazer and stuff. And then they're like, "Okay, guys, now everyone together, give your orgasm sound as a group at the same time." Yeah, very good. And we're going to be getting together again, hanging out at the In Bloom Relationship Summit. Or Stacey, you're coming through for that as well, which I'm so excited for too. It's going to be lots of fun.
Yes, me too.
How can people discover more about you guys? Where can they follow you? And what's up for you next?
Right. So we are mostly on Instagram. That's where our biggest community is, decoding_couples. Like you mentioned, we also have our own podcast. So if you want to hear more details of our relationships and chitty-chatting on all the relationship things, check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. And then you've mentioned it a couple times. We have our best-selling online self-paced course, Relationship Roadmap, which walks you through understanding your own attachment, understanding your attachment cycles with your partner, and then changing communication and a little bit of sex and intimacy at the end. So make sure you check out that course if you are wanting more from us.
Incredible. Ladies, it's been so wonderful getting to know you. And thank you so much for the time today. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us.